Everything on silent. Hey Facebook, welcome to Real Life Cooking with Chefleen, and we have Chef Drake here in the house, in my house, literally. We're gonna go ahead and get started in just a few minutes. Let's see if anyone joins us. Woohoo. How exciting. Today we are making Korean fried chicken with our nice pot and orange scented hot cakes. And what else are we making? Oh, maple. Of course, Chef Drake is here, so we need to add some bourbon to something, of course. Sunday. How are you feeling today? You.
I'm actually feeling really good.
No one's here yet. Oh, hey.
Cold.
I was like, hey, TT.
Thank you for joining us.
How kind of you.
It's a little cold. We're feeling good, though. Feeling good.
Yes. Hey, Instagram. We're live here with Chef Drake. We're doing real life cooking today with Chefleen, also Chef Drake. TT is here with us. Welcome, TT. It is a beautiful or cold fall day.
Beautiful cold fall.
Drake has been in Hi Queen Smoker NYC and Mr. Twisted. Welcome to Real Life Cooking with Chefleen. We're just waiting a few minutes to get started so that we get some more people into the house. Today we are making Korean fried chicken with maple bourbon glaze and orange scented hot cakes. So we're gonna get started in just a second. Before we get started, let's talk a little bit about Chef Drake. Go ahead. Where are you from?
I'm originally from Atlanta, so I'm a southern chef a little bit. So we're gonna do a little bit of southern.
That's why we're frying chicken, of course, right?
That's why we're using bourbon.
That's why we're using bourbon. Currently, I met Drake actually. We worked on America's Test Kitchen together. He works on ships. So if you have any questions about ship life or anything like that, you can also ask him. He's also a chef, obviously, too, so he can answer any of your questions just a little bit. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to move back now. We're going to go ahead. If you are cooking along, raise your hand if you're cooking along today. Yeah, in the background. Yeah, I look so short. I mean, I needed to wear like heels today. So basically, where was I going? Oh, we're going to be frying chicken today. So whenever you are frying something, the first thing you want to do is go ahead and get your oil started. So we'll go ahead and, if you want to pour that oil back there. And how much oil do you need? Enough to coat whatever you're making. Today we are going to be using chicken wings. And so we're going to probably use basically all of this oil to fill our pan. You don't ever want your oil to be like more than like closer to an inch to the top of your pan, because that could be bad and dangerous if your oil bubbles over. And we're going to be using our thermometer to take its temperature. We're using a Thermopen here. This is my favorite thermometer. America's Test Kitchen's favorite thermometer as well. But it is because it's the best. And so while we're dealing with our chicken and working with our chicken, we're just going to keep our oil on like a lower side. We don't need to get it so hot so fast, but if we heat it slowly while we're doing other things, it'll come to temperature when we need it to be at temperature. So we're going to be using chicken wings. Drake, would you like to show them what kind of chicken we're using?
So we are using full chicken wings, or whole chicken wings, whichever one you want to call it, which means they are still connected. We're doing this because it is a little cheaper, more cost effective to buy it this way.
All of these were $13.95, $9.35. Woo!
Whole pack.
This is enough for like one TT. This is falling.
See?
Go ahead, continue, Drake.
With that, you are buying it for a cheaper price because you're going to do the work at home. We're going to show you how to do the work. So it's in 3 pieces. You want to make this into 3 pieces separately. So we have one piece, which is the wing, which we never really use, which you're going to take off first, which you'll find right here in the joint. You can take the knife right down, take the wing right off, and then you have your 2 parts that most of us know and love, which is going to be your drumette and your flat. So with this, your chicken is already broken in the middle. Once you take it down with your hands, you can feel it.
It just pops open.
Pop right down. You can see the seam even. So only thing connecting it right now is the skin. So we're just going to take a chef knife once again, go right down where we just broke it, and then you have your chicken wings that you know and love. Except you saved a lot of money by doing it this way. So a little work at home saves you a lot of money in the end.
It literally saves you so. This is still Chefleen. I'm still here. I'm just holding up my iPad over here because it's falling down off of my tripod. But yeah, buying the chicken as drumettes at the store, literally like 8 of them costs about like $10, as opposed, like I said, this whole pack of chicken wings is about $13.35 for the whole entire pack. And Drake pointed out, you're not really cutting through the bone. It's not actually really that hard to do. You're just popping the joint open. You're just cutting through the skin, which you do need a pretty sharp knife for. But then you're just popping the bone, and then you just glide your knife through.
Yeah. Also with this, make sure you always have a sharp knife for everything. It saves you in the long run, because if you do accidentally cut yourself, a dull knife hurts a lot more, and it takes a long time to heal. So keep your knife sharp. Very important. As you'll see, the process here is very, very fast. We're going a little slower just so you can kind of see it.
And if you're cooking at home, I've been told that I go a little too fast. So
don't worry, I go really slow. So we'll even it out today.
All right. We just taped on my iPad, so hopefully we don't have any more slip-ups going on. But yeah, so yeah, while he's working on that chicken, and as you can see, this will go really quickly because we're not really doing too much. We were just cutting through the skin, cutting the joint open. I'm gonna get started on our seasoning mix. So this is actually a recipe from Drake. Where did you get this recipe from?
So this recipe actually came from a restaurant I used to work at called Chateau Lund in Atlanta, which I kind of made when I was there. And now
oh, you made up the recipe?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a Chef Drake special over here. So basically what we're gonna do is marinate our chicken with a dry rub. We're gonna be using some garlic powder. We're gonna be using some onion powder. We're gonna be using some Korean, don't look at my label, Korean chili powder. I'm just joking. Korean chili powder is actually a thing. You can get it at Asian markets if you had the time to go grab it. I know in New York City there's a market called H Mart that has probably what you would have. My parents are in town, so unfortunately I did not have time. But don't worry, chili powder is a totally appropriate substitute. Basically any sort of ground chili will work here. The only thing you might not want to use is cayenne pepper, even though it's a ground chili. It's super, super spicy and totally different than just your regular chili powder.
But it's very delicious.
It is very delicious. If you like spicy things, try it, but only a little goes a long way. And we're also adding ginger to this, right? Yes. Ground ginger. Now, ground ginger is an interesting ingredient because there's only a few places in life where you want to use this. If a recipe calls for fresh ginger, you don't ever really want to use ground ginger because it's like 6 times stronger, and it actually has less floral quality to it, and it actually adds a little bit of spice when it's dried. So in this chicken recipe, it's really going to be good because it'll enhance the chicken meat and all of that sort of situation. But say if you were making something that has like a stir fry, yeah, you want to use fresh ginger for that for sure. So I forgot your measurements. We're just gonna eyeball things because we're in my kitchen. But basically, it's really gonna be dependent also on how much chicken you have. The recipe that I gave you called for a pound of chicken. So it's about like a teaspoon of each thing for a pound of chicken. But why not add just a little bit more? This is your base layer of flavor on your chicken here. So we're gonna just sprinkle some of this in, and then as Drake is almost done with his chicken, he's going to go ahead and add in the chicken, and we'll just toss it around in there. Now, I always am like, oh, you don't have to measure anything. But if you do not know what a teaspoon looks like, you should at least measure it once so you know how much you're adding in. All right, and what you left some pieces in there. Why did we leave those in there?
So we did leave the ends of the chicken here. I mean, other than using these for stews or for making certain soups, not a really great thing to fry. In some cultures, I guess you could fry it.
Yeah, in some cultures, you fry everything.
Yeah,
you eat everything.
Everything.
But we're in America
for
here.
Purposes, for this Korean chicken,
we like to waste things.
We're gonna waste things.
Just kidding. We don't like to waste things. These would be great at home if we want to make chicken stock.
Yes.
We could literally just put them in a pot of water, boil them for like an hour, and you would have your own chicken stock that you could freeze. You could freeze into ice cube trays. Just take out and out when you need like to make a sauce or you're making something like that.
Add a lot more flavor than just tap water.
Exactly. All right, so we have our spice mix going here. I'm gonna have Drake with his chicken hands put the chicken inside of the bowl. One note, when I am seasoning things, I normally do go a little heavier on onion and garlic powder because they're like, I don't know why do I do that? Sometimes I just do chefy things and I don't know why. So maybe you could explain why I normally go heavier. I guess it's just
go heavier on those too, especially garlic powder.
Yeah, garlic, it just adds like a lot more flavor. And then the ground ginger, like I said, it's pretty spicy. And the chili powder, that's going to be, this is a base layer of flavor, because remember, we're going to be making a maple bourbon sauce to glaze this with at the end. So this is our base layer of flavor. So,
and you also can marinate this over time.
Yes.
So.
You can marinate this for up to I would say 2 days.
Yeah, 48 hours.
And it'll really seep into your meat. If you just want to pick up a piece and show them how it looks coated, kind of. And the longer, if you were to let this sit and marinate, it would really absorb into the skin a lot.
So, that way, the base layer that Chefleen keeps talking about, so when you're tasting things that has layers of flavor versus only tasting the one flavor that you're looking for, this is how you get that. So you're creating this at home.
Yes.
All the great flavors inside.
And of course, we cannot forget salt. And as usual, I'm adding a ton of salt, but remember, proteins can hold a lot of salt. And salt really, I just watched on Netflix, there's this great series called Salt, Acid, Heat, and Fire. Fat. What is the lady's name? It's a really great series. I know all the facts, but no details. Awesome, right? But yeah, it's a really, really great series on Netflix, and it explains why, if you're watching me add how much salt I do and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get high blood pressure, you should watch the episode on salt, and it really explains and dives into depths about why we use so much salt as chefs. So yeah, at this point, we could let our chicken sit to the side and marinate for up to 48 hours. All those flavors will absorb even more. And when you let protein sit with salt, it really helps the flavors absorb. But I guess I'll let him wash his hands now, because again, chicken has salmonella and we don't want to spread that around. And we'll get rid of all of our spices. If you are just joining us, welcome to Real Life Cooking with Chefleen. We are making today Korean fried chicken with orange scented hotcakes and maple bourbon glaze. And today we have Chef Drake joining me. He was one of my we didn't actually ever work together, but he was one of my counterparts on ships. He worked for he still actually works for America's Test Kitchen. Sometimes I'm pretty jealous of his life. He's traveling all around the 7 seas and stuff like that. Although I'm not too jealous of your ship food necessarily.
Not the best, but we worked together for 5 days in Boston.
Yes, we were trained in Boston together at America's Test Kitchen. Let me grab another cutting board because, again, chicken has salmonella, and we don't want to cross-contaminate anything with salmonella because salmonella can kill us. All right, so we'll put our chicken over here, and we'll get started on our batter. And as you can see, my mixing bowls are not actually mixing bowls, they're serving bowls, but listen, it's real life, and my kitchens I work in and the kitchens he works in, we have all the amazing materials, but at home you gotta work with what you got. So we have our nice serving bowl that we're gonna make our batter in.
And you actually can see it because it's clear. It's great.
Way to see the positive in everything. And we have our flour, sugar, which is an interesting ingredient, and our cornstarch.
Does it matter what kind of flour you use?
Yes, that's a good point. So the flour you use does matter. So we're using self-rising flour. That's because it already has leaveners in it. So it has baking soda in it. And we need that to actually make sure that the exterior of your batter is crispy and light and airy. So we need that carbon dioxide kind of bubbles to form inside of the batter whenever we're cooking something.
How did I get so much flour? Sorry to interrupt. Yes, self-rising flour. But how did I get so messy? More importantly, exactly. I am not looking good on camera. Just kidding. So if we didn't have self-rising flour, you would want to add one of those leavening ingredients, right?
Yes. Baking powder and baking soda, or at least baking soda in this case.
Yes, for sure. And about a teaspoon or so to a cup of flour, if you don't have it. And In general, I just normally, I don't know, I have this because Chris brought this from Atlanta. In general, I normally use regular AP flour and everything because then I can control the amounts of everything. But in this case, it kind of worked out, so I don't have to add anything extra to this. So, again, we are eyeballing, but in general, the proportions are about half and half.
About half and half.
About.
And it's because of the cornstarch, too. The cornstarch helps us with the exterior of the batter, and that's because cornstarch really is great in terms of keeping everything, the moisture in or out. So use cornstarch to keep moisture out when we're frying. You also can use it a couple times to keep the moisture in when you're doing certain recipes, such as your Asian dumplings that we do.
Asian dumplings, because it helps like gelatinize the fats and stuff of that nature.
It works in both ways.
Yep.
And then the sugar here is kind of like using salt and a couple other recipes. So the sugar kind of tones down not just the flour itself being kind of heavy, but it kind of gives it a little bit of underbite, and it works. So I kind of added it in as a trial, and I kept it in when I made the recipe. So
sugar, a lot of times sugar in recipes, there's a lot of sugar oftentimes in sauces that you don't even have any idea about. Which, if someone like Titi Lio has ever done Whole30, you realize how much sugar you're actually eating in things. I believe like McDonald's fries, like tosses, they're in sugar and salt. It really, like the combination of the two really does have like a amazing taste in your mouth. Maybe not the greatest for you, but we're also frying it, so you know.
It's true. So it's fine.
Speaking of frying, I'm going to check our oil temperature.
And you have a whisk?
Yes, I do. I have a whisk. We want to whisk this stuff together before we add any liquid. Do you know why? Do you know why I'm testing you? Do you know why we want to do that?
So you want to make sure that anytime you're adding things, such as your liquids or anything in, that you're only adding into one ingredient first. So that means we want to make sure this is one consistent ingredient inside here, which is going to be your flour, your cornstarch, your sugar, and your salt. Also, this helps in terms of making sure that each and every piece of chicken goes into a consistent batter. We don't have lumps of salt over here, lumps of sugar on this side, a little bit of cornstarch. So this helps us in the long run.
We also, once we start adding in the water, because Korean fried, we didn't even talk about what the difference between Korean fried chicken and Southern fried chicken. Korean fried chicken is often fried twice. It's a lighter, crispier batter. It's not as heavy. A lot of times when we eat Southern fried chicken, it feels like very heavy because there's egg, there's a lot of, there's flour in here too. Buttermilk, it's very, very heavy. As opposed to Korean fried chicken, there is not so much, it's not so heavy, yes.
It's not so heavy. Even though it's very crispy, but it's not heavy.
It is, but we're gonna fry it twice. Ooh, how exciting. And we also wanna make sure all the ingredients are together before we add in our ice cold water, because if we work our flour too much, we're gonna develop a lot of gluten, which is gonna make it, yes, which is not, it's a horrible word. Horrible word since 2006. But it does, when you develop too much gluten, things become like a totally different,
rubbery.
Yes, totally different consistency. So it's good that we mix it first.
Now we add in the water, which even in the ingredient list is not technically measured, because you definitely just want to go by the consistency.
I'll help you out there.
Thank you.
We don't want any ice cubes in our water, but we definitely need our water to be ice cold.
Yes. So I'm gonna add in a little bit here and just work it in. I hold the bowl so we don't mess up Chefleen's entire kitchen.
It's okay. As you can see, I use a strainer here just to make it easier, unless you want to struggle and like use your hand too. We're gonna need a lot more water, because what we're looking for is a very thin batter.
You should be able to stick your finger inside of it and it coats your finger, but you should not be able to pick it up like this.
It shouldn't be clumpy.
You want it to be a little bit thinner here, so we can add more water in.
Oh, see, now I started using my hands. Time to get messy. Also, along the way, if you are first joining us, first viewer, first time watching, you can ask any culinary question and we'll attempt to answer it. There's about, how much? Like 30 years of experience between the two of us now?
Yeah.
Oh, I've never felt so educated and
No,
smart. Educated and brilliant. We both worked in a lot of different aspects in the culinary world. Drake's done a lot more restaurants than I have. I've been more private chefing throughout the whole time.
I think between us though, we probably have private chef, restaurants, yachts.
Probably every catering,
So,
all kinds of things.
Hopefully we can answer.
Video, teaching.
We can hopefully answer pretty much anything at this point.
All right, so do you want to show that? Do you have a
I
question?
have a question from the Cloudy Chef. I think it's more of a statement actually. What I read, chef. You want it similar to tempura.
Yes, this is exactly like a tempura batter.
Actually, we can do a little bit more.
So if you want to show them what we have now,
So this is a little too thick.
see how it's like dropping off, like clumping off. You want it just a little bit thinner than that. So we're gonna go ahead and add more water.
Even with tempura batters, even if you buy the tempura batter that's pre-made and you make it at home, you always want to remember with tempura, it's a very quick cooking batter. So you don't want to fry chicken, for instance, in tempura batter because it will get done very quick and your chicken will not.
Your chicken will be raw.
So you want to make sure you only get tempura with certain things.
Like
so,
vegetables,
yeah,
shrimp,
shrimp.
seafood. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
But the thinness of the batter is very close to tempura. Even though we're frying it twice, and that's another reason because we're frying chicken, so you want to make sure that it is completely done. Don't want any medium well chicken in any case.
No, only, yeah.
But it still is a little too thick, but it's getting there.
It's almost like going to be a little bit thinner than pancake batter, which you'll see
in just
a minute. Let's add some more water. And actually, that's a good point too. At this point, at the beginning, we were adding in the water pretty frivolously because we knew we had a long way to go. But at this point, this is when you would want to add it in a little and a little at a time. Because if we put too much water in at this point, then we're kind of screwed.
Yeah, it's no going back.
No going back.
A little bit.
As I pour like the whole thing in.
No going back.
A little bit.
We can always fix everything in the kitchen. This is a myth that people believe that you can't fix things in the kitchen. Everything can always be fixed. If it were to get a little too runny, although not necessarily recommended, it would be okay to like add just a little bit of flour. I would add equal parts of flour and cornstarch as long as you go until you get the right batter. What do you think of that?
So this is pretty good.
Susan, stick his finger in.
So coat your finger, as you can see.
I'll move closer.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Ooh, I just got some batter on my whatever.
So you want to coat it.
Coat your finger, but see how it's not clumping off or dripping off? That cornstarch, if you've ever made slime in school, that's kind of like what it is. But it is slowly dripping if I were to stand here for a long time. There you go, see? Oh, like in the sand when you used to make sand drip castles? Anyone do that? That's kind of like what you want, what you're looking for, like that wet sand to make a drip castle sort of consistency. All right, let's clean this up out of the way. I'm gonna rinse off my hand of this batter. Also, we're gonna check our oil again. When I last checked it, it was at 223, 223-ish. When you're frying something, you wanna use a heavy bottom pan. You don't wanna use your little flimsy pan. You also wanna make sure that your oil is at least 350 and not higher than 375, I would say. That could get dangerous. I'm gonna turn up my heat because at this point we're basically ready to fry. So now I'm just, see how long it takes oil to heat up too? So I'm gonna turn up my heat as we are waiting for this to get hotter. Right now it's about, I keep moving it out of there, but it's about at 300 now. So we're waiting for it to get to 350, like I said. Thank you. Oh my gosh, you know what I realized? I think I ran out of mixing bowls. Because we always use this one bowl for popcorn in our house, and it's probably in the dishwasher. But we're not going to wash it. You know what we're going to use to make our pancakes? A pot. Because
we're at home cooking.
This is what we have. It's the same thing, basically, right?
So rounded pie.
Exactly. So I'm going to have Drake just be keeping a careful eye on our oil, because I don't want to explode in here, although that would make for really great live streaming TV. We probably would, sadly. So yeah, he's gonna keep an eye on our oil. What kind of oil are we using? Probably a question that's running through your mind. We are using canola oil. You could use vegetable oil. You could use grapeseed oil. You could use peanut oil. Not grapeseed?
No, get too high.
Oh, he said no grapeseed. All right, no grapeseed because it gets too hot. Also, if you're concerned about, what is the thing I've recently been concerned about? Where'd you put that oil bottle?
It's in the trash.
In the trash. We recycle in this house.
Sorry.
Only when my mom's here. What was it? Cholesterol? Oh, saturated fat. Actually, vegetable oil in one of these fats is actually higher and worse for you than canola oil, which I was surprised for. Because I thought like vegetable oil would be healthier because the word vegetable you think is more better. But actually, if you look at the facts on the back, canola oil is actually kind of better for you. So pancake mix. What do we need for this while our oil is heating up?
Turn into your sous chef now.
We need any kind of pancake mix that you have.
The best.
We are gonna spruce this up. This one actually calls for 3/4 a cup of milk to 1 cup of pancake mix to an egg and an oil. That's doing a lot. These pancake mixes, and basically all mixes in general, are made for you not to fail. So say you wanted to make pancakes in the morning one day and you didn't have eggs, you didn't have oil, you could just mix it with water and it'll still be okay. It won't be like the best pancake ever, but it won't be the worst either because you're gonna cover it in syrup. And in this case, we're gonna cover it in bourbon maple glaze. So
the syrup will be very
yeah,
good.
pancake is kind of just a vehicle. But in this case, we didn't want to make it just a vehicle, just something that's forgettable underneath our delicious crispy fried chicken. We are gonna make it orange scented, which also sounds very fancy. So we're gonna use an orange, and we are also going to use yogurt. So because our pancake mix calls for egg and oil, instead of using those things, we're actually going to use the yogurt in place of that. That'll be the fat that we're going to use inside. And then to get the consistency that we want, we're going to use the juice from this orange, and we're going to just make it as to the consistency that we need with water afterwards. So how do we do this? So hard, right? We pour the pancake mix into the bowl that we have going on here.
That's where a lot of people mess up.
Yeah, this is, Stephanie, this is probably where you're messing up at home with all the measurements that you need. And then, to make it orange scented, what are we gonna do? Where is the actual essence of the orange? In the zest, actually. The most flavor from the orange is gonna come from the zest. So I'm gonna use my rasp grater, my favorite tool in the kitchen, and go ahead and zest my orange. Oop.
20 degrees power go here.
How far are we from there?
20 degrees.
20 degrees still. See, this is why I told you to start your oil as soon as you start cooking. Although, if you start your oil, you don't want to be walking in and out of your kitchen.
No.
Yeah, oil is really, really dangerous.
Had a near miss on the shoot before.
Really? What happened with your, what were you doing, the fried pies?
I was doing what was it? The chili oil. The Asian
Oh,
stuff.
we had a show on the ship. Well, he still has a show on the ship. Called Asian Dumplings, where we made shumai and we made our own homemade chili oil. And so you heat the oil up to 350 or so.
350 and chili flakes. And on certain ships, we work on different size ships. When you close the curtains, everything shuts off. So it's a safety mechanism because we have to go in and out of the kitchen. And on this ship I was on, that didn't happen. So.
Oh, so the oil was just
The
heating
oil
up?
was still heating.
So how hot was it? Like 700 degrees? Drake
Watch your
almost
oil.
spilled the whole shit.
Watch your oil. We are very safe on ships, though, so nothing happens. Which is why
Safety
they call it
first,
a
always
near
on
miss.
ships.
Near miss.
No, seriously, ships are so safe.
We
It's
are
like the
safe.
safest place I've ever been.
I feel safer on ships than most
I feel safer than ships in the subway for sure. So I'm zesting my whole orange. This is one of the few times that I'm using the entire orange zest. I think I've talked about this before if you watched before. You don't want to sit here and zest your orange like at the same place over and over because the white pith is bitter and it's going to add nastiness, not deliciousness. So I'm basically just going one way and then rotating my orange around. And you're not going to be able to get all of it necessarily. That's okay. So I'll show you guys how it looks. Also, Instagrammers, I heard that watching on Facebook is actually better because of the sound quality, the video quality. So if you would like to go ahead and watch on Facebook, awesome place to go. So this is what our orange looks like. Basically, I've gotten all the, oh, I missed this little piece. It smells delicious, right?
It smells good. We
Smells
already go
good.
with chicken too, so I'm gonna start frying chicken behind her.
Well, I'll let you fry a couple
So you can
pieces
see.
so you can see what we're gonna do. So basically, go ahead. I'm like such a talker over. I'm like blah 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 blah. All right, so chicken that could have marinated for up to 48 hours into our batter.
Now, some people say put one in at a time, but I feel like it's easier for me if I do the batch at one time. So I put in as many as I'm going to put for the batch. So we are batch cooking, meaning that I only can fit so much chicken in my oil at one time. You don't want to overflow your oil for
Obvious reasons.
But if you do overflow your oil, the same thing that Chefleen just said about not filling up your rim, your oil is going to rise because you're putting something inside of it. So it's still liquid. So we don't want it to come up too high and go over your stove here. So we're gonna fry in batches. So I'm just gonna do a small batch first.
So a good rule of thumb is to put less chicken in, or even like put a few pieces in, wait and see how high your oil rises, and then if you add a little bit more. I would say for a pan this size, we're not gonna put more than 8 pieces in at a time. The other important thing to remember when you're putting chicken into oil is you're actually lowering the temperature of the oil when you put your chicken in. So although we're starting at 350, 360, around there, it's probably, once you put all the chicken in for this batch, it's probably gonna go down to 320. So,
this is a big question when people always say, my first batch came out really good, and by the second or third batch, it didn't look so great. It's because you have to wait for the oil to get back up to 350
yes.
before we start adding the second and third batch.
Yes, question.
Question from Lori Wise. How long are you going to fry the chicken?
Great question, Lori Rise. We are going to, because we're making Korean fried chicken, literally the definition is double frying it. That's why it's so crispy. We're gonna fry this batch, so the first set around, we're gonna fry it until it's like a light, like my skin in the winter, basically. I always use my skin color as like a frying technique.
Get to my skin.
A lighter. So basically, I would say about 8 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes.
And that's because we're also using chicken wings.
Yes.
So we didn't talk about different cuts we can use, but you can use any cut of the chicken. So traditionally, in most places, you'll see chicken thighs, for instance. They're way cheaper, and you can cut them down to whatever size you want. But chicken wings, we are in America, so most people like the wings better. So using the wings, it's gonna take a little bit longer than if we had a small piece of thigh with no bone inside. So we're gonna make sure they're almost this complexion first.
Almost this complexion.
And then we'll take them out of the oil. So below 8 minutes, no more than 10 minutes. We don't want to overcook them first.
Yeah, so we're gonna cook them for about 8 minutes. You don't want them dark. We're not looking for color at this moment. But we do want to make sure our chicken is thoroughly cooked. Another benefit of using chicken wings instead of thighs, they cook a lot faster. Thighs will take way longer because they're so much thicker in meat, and while wings shouldn't take more than 15 minutes total to cook the entire wing. Also, it's football season. Wings are in style. That's why we're using wings.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll let him go ahead, and when the chicken gets to the right, good to see he's going to stop me. But in the meantime, I'm going to talk about the pancakes. So we're using box pancake mix. Yes, this is a bowl, not a pot. And we just zested a whole orange into it to make our orange-scented hot cakes. It's actually kind of surprising how many people didn't know hot cakes are pancakes. But yeah, hot cakes are pancakes. It's a regional thing. I guess I called them pancakes growing up. To zest not to zest, now I'm gonna use the liquid for my orange. A lot of times when people make orange things, they have you buy orange juice. We just zested the orange. Let's use the juice from the thing that we just zested it from. To get the most out of this citrus fruit, I've showed you this before. I'm actually gonna cut it off center a bit. So I end up with 3 pieces, just like this. I have these 2 little halves, this little centerpiece. And I'm gonna cut this centerpiece in half. And then I'm gonna squeeze all of this liquid into my pancake mix. This technique works with any citrus fruit. You get so much more juice than if you were to, if you were to just cut it in half horizontally, how most normal people do at work. Is everything okay back there? It sounds like it's getting a little exciting.
It's always exciting when it's time.
So, I guess from this one orange, I'm probably getting at least 1/4 a cup, maybe a little bit more juice. I really want to make sure, and this, I destroy my orange. I want to get all the juice. It's okay if a little bit of pulp gets in there too. That's just gonna be added flavor there. I wanted to take this moment to talk about, as I'm juicing this orange, this thing called a reamer, which I will show you what that is in one moment. Oh, here it is. A lot of times recipes recommend using this thing. Clearly I own one, so it's not completely useless. But when it comes to getting the most juice out of your item, just doing it exactly how I did is a lot easier if you're doing a little bit of juice at a time. Because a lot of times I find, even when I press this in here, there's still juice left inside of the citrus fruit. So yeah, I would do it the way that I just showed you. Yes, question?
Question from the Cloudy Chef. Are hot cakes smaller than traditional pancakes?
Most places, yes.
Oh, see, that good thing Drake is here because I would have said, I don't know.
Most places, yes.
Hot cakes are, yes, a little bit smaller.
And sometimes they're even called, what is it, like that, I can't remember the name. It's like, I've been places where they're called like little dollars.
Oh, silver dollars.
Silver dollars. It's kind of closer to hot cakes than pancakes. Also, I just did one thing in between while she's getting the pancake batter together. You have these little pieces of your batter that's inside your oil after you do a first batch. I'm taking the tongs now and taking it out because as we go on and do more and more batches, these items will continue to cook. So a lot of times you burn your oil or you notice that your grease gets a little older really fast. You have to make sure you're cleaning it out between each batch. So as we're waiting for the oil to come back up, I'm cleaning out the pan here of any debris so it's not continuously cooking as we're making the rest of it.
That'll also make your oil taste not good. The longer it cooks in there. I wanted to show you his first batch of chicken that came out. Look how crispy and amazing looking this looks. As you can see, it doesn't look like traditional fried chicken. It's like crispy and big and puffy. And it's about my complexion as promised. Nice and golden. But it is not cooked at this point. Do not eat it. It's not thoroughly cooked, so let's not eat it now. Also, if you're cooking along at home, this is the point where you want to have a baking sheet and a baking rack. We want to have that air circulation underneath, so we just spend it making it crispy. We don't want it to be uncrispy by the condensation from sitting on something.
The cooling rack is really, really good to have. A lot of people don't have cooling racks or you don't use it, but just as she just said, you don't want things to get soggy. So you want to make sure they're elevated, and if they're sitting on top of a plate or on top of something, then the bottom of them just automatically starts to get soggy because as that steam where the heat's trying to escape, it's just sitting there. So you're causing your item to kind of get soggy on the bottom, which you don't want to have.
I'm over here having a coughing attack from fall. Back to our pancake mix. We have our citrus zest, our orange juice, and our yogurt. I filled the cup of yogurt up with water. I'm gonna add that in. Sorry guys. It's that fall weather. It got me.
It is. It came very fast. It's okay. We're both slightly sick, so I might tag in when she tags in just a minute.
But the show must go on.
Always. We're going to do 2 batches too. For the chicken, so we're on the second batch now, and we'll hold off on the third batch. So just wash my hands with the chicken, and then we'll move on to get our batter mixed together for your pancakes. So, with Chefleen's pancakes here, we have the rest of the water inside of your yogurt container, which is good also because we have extra yogurt inside of there. So a lot of times we'll throw away our items, or even if you're making your tomato sauce for spaghetti or something, always put the water or whatever else you're using into that same container. We want to get all the ingredients out. It's also good whenever you're blending things. So if you're making a sauce in your blender, put the rest of your liquid into the blender and blend it one more time before you actually finish it. So this will help you out. Question?
I have a question from Lauren Wise.
Yes.
Are you going to cook the chicken in the oven? Should we preheat?
No. For this size chicken, we don't have to cook it in the oven. If you want to do the same recipe with a full chicken breast, yes. And that's because the breast would not be done in time. So even after we go twice with the Korean frying it twice, they wouldn't be done. So yeah, if you want to do a full chicken breast, you could do that and then finish it in the oven. But for these size, we don't have to finish it in the oven. So good question. Chefleen's back.
I'm back. I'm alive. You're welcome. Thanks. Thanks for going to 80 to 50, New York City. All right, so I'm going to be mixing in some water to my pancake mix. And like I said, you can't really mess this up. You just want it at the right pancake consistency.
It smells really good.
It smells just like oranges.
Which I think we both need some vitamin C. So.
I'm going to get some more water for my pancakes. And myself.
A little bit of both. A little bit of both.
Add some more in.
I have a question.
Yes.
Maureen O'Reilly has a question. How is frying twice different than frying once a long time?
Drake, would you like to take that question? Since this is your recipe.
With Korean fried chicken, the main reason why they started frying twice is mostly because, so as you're frying now, so when I take it out of the grease, it's going to become a little crispier as it kind of cools down. And then when we put it back inside, now the outside of that outside is crispy enough. So that makes sense. Whenever we're frying something, a kind of air bubble feels around the item that you're frying, and it creates this layer that keeps everything intact. So that's something that we just use with the cornstarch to make sure it becomes super crispy. So when we fry the second time, now that all that extra oil and moisture has come out, it's frying on the outside of the outside. So it's just creating an even more crispier texture. So you could fry completely through the first time, but it's more like southern fried chicken where we're really trying to get it a little crispy, but we're really more worried about the second layer of it. With this, we're really worried about the outside layer. So make sure that it's really crispy.
Super crispy. Also, if you watch the fish tacos episode, and I talked about how frying things doesn't necessarily make them unhealthy, if you have the right oil temperature, you're not actually frying the protein. You're just frying the outside batter. And so in this case, we are frying the outside batter once, and then we're frying it again with that extra air bubble on the outside already, which will make it even more crispy. All right, I think I'm really back to normal now.
Yay!
Yay! So we have our pancake batter, which is a little thinner than, than our batter that we made for our chicken. It's dripping. It's a little more drip droppy, just like this. Drip droppy. Yes, that is a technical kitchen term. Drip droppy. And it smells amazing. It smells just like oranges. For this recipe, I think it would be also nice if you have Chinese 5-spice to add in some of those earthy flavors like cinnamon, nutmeg. I didn't add it on the grocery list because I never want to overwhelm you and think like, oh, I need all of these ingredients to cook something. Or some cinnamon. And most people have cinnamon in their house. Cinnamon would be nice. I actually have cinnamon.
And if you have cinnamon sticks in your microplane, you actually can do your own cinnamon.
Yeah, I never even thought about that. I only use cinnamon sticks for like apple cider. All right, so our chicken, you finished our chicken over here, right?
Yep. So it's the first batch. We're going to go in with second cook.
Ta-da!
But you also can kind of have a fork here. So you should be able to hear this, where we hear a little bit of the outside. When we go in for the second time, we're really going to hear that crispy chicken. So we hear it a little bit now, but that second fry is going to really give us that really nice kind of noise after hitting the chicken with the fork. And
we also want to let this rest for like a few minutes.
Yeah.
You don't want to go fry it once and then directly fry it again. You want to let it chill out for a second. I've heard that you could put this in the freezer. Would that help it?
Look, I've never done it in the freezer, but I've seen it be put in the freezer before. So
I've heard if you're frying something and you put something in the freezer, it actually fries even crispier and better the second time.
You know, that's a great question for America's Test Kitchen. So I will pass that along to my bosses to see if we can test it out.
So now we have to cook our pancakes, of course. So I'm just heating up a nonstick skillet in the back. A lot of times you use Pam spray when you're cooking pancakes. I like to use butter because butter is better, more fat, and more delicious. There is this saying I'm sure you've heard, your first pancake never comes out right. Do not fret if your first pancake or hot cake does not come out right. Also, I had the question, if you have a waffle iron at home, can you use it for the same exact batter? Yes, of course. You can just put in your waffle iron. Again, I want to make things accessible, and I want to make you feel like you have to go buy out all this equipment and ingredients to make good food in your own home. But we're gonna heat this up and add in some butter. And while I am cooking my pancakes, get the glaze going.
So, with the glaze here, we're going to go over a little bit of the difference between your maple syrup and your pancake syrup. So, they are very, very similar in look sometimes, but they're very different in taste and in quality.
And in cost.
And in cost. And in cost. So, of course, one costs more than the other, which this is going to cost a little bit more than your pancake syrup. But do you know what your pancake syrup is mostly made of? Kathleen, you want to let them know the...
Trash, rubbish, sugar.
Sugar. 110% sugar. So just cooked down sugar is mostly what's in this. Yes, question.
Question and statement. So statement from the Cloudy Chef. 5 to 8 minutes in the freezer drops the temperature faster and allows the batter to cook slower.
There we go. Cloudy Chef, thanks for tuning in and adding into the show. Got to get you on the show next.
And question from Insatiable Amory. This may have been said, but I joined late. Is it considered Korean fried chicken because of the flavor or because of the technique used to fry the chicken?
The technique used. Yeah. So the technique used is the Korean fried chicken method, which is double frying or frying twice, and then getting the crispy exterior. So also a little bit of the method of making it with the cornstarch to flour ratio. So that outside layer as well. So for our glaze here, we're gonna kind of do something that's very simple, which we're using a little bit of chili flakes here. So this is also one of my recipes at home. So I use a lot of spice. So using a lot of spice at home. If you want to use a little bit of spice here, you can also take and half the amount of chili flakes that go into this recipe. Now this just adds a little bit of flavor because we're adding a lot of things with sugar. So we're not using the pancake syrup, so don't worry about that. But we are using maple syrup, and maple syrup still is a little sweet, so it's on the sweeter side. So having that spice is not bad. So we're not gonna make it super spicy.
This is a good glaze even if you're just making baked chicken. You don't want to go through all this effort of frying your chicken. You could just bake some chicken and drizzle this glaze on.
So a little bit of your chilies here, some vanilla, if I can open.
So vanilla, I did this as a trick for him. Vanilla, if it sits on your counter for a long time, you're not opening it up, it crystallizes just like your maple syrup can too. He was pretty strong and clever and used his chef coat. But if it really doesn't open, I've had this happen to me before, just run it under some hot water and it will loosen up pretty easily.
That works. Actually, I had a show recently where I forgot to open my wine, and we have a topless show now, which uses, we make
I thought you said
sangria.
topless. I was like, a topless show? What kind of?
Topless show, and we have to use wine to make sangria, and I forgot to pre-open my wine. So I was, so we had to imagine it. But,
You had to
it was very fast, and we are very timed on the ship, so had to imagine it. But I have my 2 first ingredients inside. I'm only going to heat these up for just a second. It's going to go super fast. So we're heating these up first because I want to deglaze the pan with my bourbon. So the Jack Daniels is not only just for decoration and later.
And flair.
And flair.
And for the party, once Chris gets back from Cancun.
We have a little bit of the Jack going in because it's going to cook off, but it's going to give us really good flavor. So the bourbon adds a lot of flavor into it. We're going to use it to deglaze the pan as it's heating up.
So I'll let you use this burner back here. And I want to show you guys, I've been cooking my pancake. Again, remember your first pancake never comes out perfectly right. But the time when you want to flip your pancake, hot cake, I keep calling it pancake, clearly I'm from California, is when you start to see these little holes on top and the holes start to breathe and pop open. Can you see them in there? You see? Yep, just like that. That is when it is a good time to flip your pancake. I'm using a non-skid skillet here with butter inside, just essential flavor, or adding more flavor. And I've talked about a fish spatula before. This is a great place to use your fish spatula. It's a multi-use tool. You don't always have to use it for fish. Also, another good point, you see this is made out of metal. So he's deglazing his pan back there with the bourbon.
Nice.
If you wanted to be fancy, you could like catch it on fire.
I didn't really want to do fire in her kitchen.
Yeah, maybe not next to the hot oil either.
Yeah.
So
we'll do flambe another time.
But yeah, with tools also, when you're buying your tools, kitchen tools, try to look for tools that are metal rather than plastic. I had a friend cooking along with the etouffee recipe, and she was using a plastic spoon making her roux, and the spoon actually melted into her roux. So just a note to think of when you're buying tools, yeah.
Then the last step is just to add your maple syrup right into your pan as well. And we're just gonna simply let this cook down. So I move this to the back.
Yeah, move that up to the back. I'm gonna leave my pancake back here. In true fashion, my first pancake is really not coming out right. It's not quite cooked all the way because I tried to flip it and it was like, we're not flipping. So we're gonna let it cook a little harder.
What was it like?
The pancake was like, and then we'll go ahead and flip it. See, it's still a little sad back here. So when you're flipping your pancakes, don't force it. Pancakes was one of the first things I learned how to make, and I learned to make them from scratch. I almost might still remember the recipe. But the key is patience when you're cooking with pancakes and finding the temperature of the pan exactly perfect. If it's too low, your pancakes are going to be like, I'm not ready. And if it's too high, you're going to end up with burnt pancakes that you leave for everyone else. You're going to be trying to get your pancakes first and be like, I don't know what happened to those. Yes, question.
Yes, comment from Maureen O'Brien O'Reilly. When we were young, my brother used to call the first pancake a New Yorker.
Because it was so light. It was so light in color.
Oh, so.
Oh, okay. I took it.
Wow. Perfect example of the first pancake coming out extra light back here.
Not what I was thinking, but your first pancake is really good, though.
I mean, but it is light. Like,
is very
as you
light.
go along and your pan is at the
Heats up.
better temperature, they'll become more crispy and more how I like to look in the summer. Again, reference to my skin color and food.
I'm always ready for a chicken, too, so.
It's really important when you're cooking to think of visual cues that help you remember things.
Yes.
Because as we talk about techniques and things of that nature, if you don't have a visual cue or a smell or something that you can make sense to you, it's going to be really difficult to cook. I always have weird metaphors and things for cooking. While our pancakes are cooking, I guess it's about time to start cooking our chicken off one more time, right?
Yep. Start with this. Our glaze is deglazing. We're making our New York pancake right now. Moving on to our real pancake in just a second.
Let's clear out our kitchen. Clean kitchens make better food.
Yes.
Oh,
I
we
did-
made a mistake. We didn't even temp our oil before we
I
started
did-
putting our.
I did tempt it on.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh,
See, I'm
he
making
did
a
it
good
behind
sous
my
chef.
back.
I checked it.
Cooking is always more fun, obviously, with more people in your kitchen. It's a very communicative sort of effort. It's also way more fun to eat with people.
Yeah.
Lyle will know. Oh, also, I don't know if you guys saw me struggling back here when I was making my pancakes. I had a spoon, and I was like, how am I going to make a pancake with this spoon? I don't have any measuring cups in this house. So what I ended up deciding to use is this ladle.
Now everything is cooking at one time. So
And this is totally possible to do by yourself.
yeah.
Although, if you're not an avid fryer, might just stick to the frying by itself. Yes, question.
How much batter are you putting into each hot cake?
This is about 1/4 of a cup. This ladle. Or actually, no, just kidding. This is about 1/2 a cup. But honestly, your pancakes can be any size that you want them to be. The bigger that they are, I find, the bigger that your pancakes are, the harder they are to flip. So if you're not used to making hot cakes or pancakes, I would make them smaller at first. Also, because your pan is different temperatures. Sorry. Around the whole thing. So if you're making them really big, the middle is going to take, or the edges are going to take a little longer to cook than the middle. Oh, now our pan is getting nice and super hot. Our pancake's actually bubbling. It's very exciting. And I think this one is done, so I'm going to go ahead and take this out. Our sad little, that doesn't even deserve to be on the plate, that sad little New York pancake, as my mom's brother calls them.
I'm gonna start calling them that now.
Question.
Yes, question.
How long do you have to wait for the oil to get to the right temperature to cook the chicken again?
So we just left our oil on the entire time. I
We're
did,
checking on low.
yeah, I did check it because I didn't want it to be so hot. I turned it down to low in the middle. So if you're just kind of watching it, you don't really have to wait very long at all, or at all.
Yeah, it'll be different times too because we use a thermometer. So as soon as it gets to 350, you're more worried about the temperature than the time. So it could get to 350 on medium up to medium high. Just take a lot longer. than
Yeah.
If you turn it all the way off, of course, it's gonna take a lot longer.
Take home note, when you are frying things, thermometer is key.
Yes.
You don't have to have this super fancy thermometer that costs like $100. It is much more effective and you don't have to stand over the oil for longer. But the thermometer is key to having effective frying at home. It's really hard to guess the temperature of oil. Like, you're not going to stick your finger in the oil and be like, I wonder if this is the right temperature. That doesn't sound good.
Also, this one works so good, we can use it for double things. I can still temp my oil, but I can temp my chicken inside of the oil right now at the same time.
Yeah.
So you can also do that as well.
Also, frying, do you have a question?
I have a question. What temperature are you cooking the chicken to?
What temperature do we cook chicken to?
Chicken is always 165. That is
Oh,
the temperature I always know.
We're not going any less than that.
No, I stump stumble through, like remembering medium rare and rare for steak and pork and things is a little difficult for me because the numbers go backwards in my head. But 165 for chicken is all you need to know.
Every single time,
Every
no matter
single-
what you cook.
Every single time, every single piece of chicken, every single kind of chicken, 175 or 165.
165.
As you can see, well, I just tried to flip my second pancake, and I made this really huge. So like I was saying, the outsides don't cook as fast as the inside because the inside is closest to the heat source. So the inside is more stable right now than the outside, so I have to wait just a little bit longer. Also, if you've joined me before, you don't have a mini oven with only one good burner, and one burner is frying the chicken right now. But see, you can do this in any sort of situation. You can make delicious food, no matter your circumstances, no matter your kitchen size, no matter, there's no excuse for making food for yourself in
This
your
is
own home.
actually great to make by yourself too because you're frying chicken twice. So you can multitask, get the chicken already fried out. You can make your pancakes and then the second fry only takes a little while. So you can literally go pancakes, chicken, and your bourbon sauce is cooking in the back. So it's a very good recipe to use by yourself in the kitchen.
Also, if you were making the chicken by yourself, as we learned from the Cloudy Chef, it's actually good to freeze your chicken. So if you wanted to cook it that first time, if you cooked your chicken the first time and you live by yourself, you're not going to eat like 15 pieces of chicken, you can freeze a whole batch, and then when you want fried chicken again, you can take it out and fry it as you need it.
Which is amazing.
Yes. Where did my, oh, here's my fish spatula. Here it is. So again, he's just transferring it back to that same exact baking sheet or baking rack that we were using before. Again, so it doesn't, we just made it super crispy. We don't want to make it not crispy. Ta-da!
That's a good thing.
Looking good, looking good.
I was just gonna do the test so you can actually. I have no feeling in my fingers, so it's actually totally fine to hold this up. But you actually want to hear that.
Can you guys hear that at home?
Could
Raise
you
your
hear it?
hand.
Could you hear it?
Raise your hand. Oh, see, that sound though. That's great. See? Cloudy Chef, we really appreciate you today. You're amazing out
Start
there.
Follow me, Cloudy Chef. I'm gonna start talking to
He
you.
works on shifts. He can get you discounts.
Friends
Friends and family.
We'll see. We'll see. No promises.
No promises for sure.
I did not tip my chicken.
Oh, he didn't tip his oil. So our bourbon sauce is going in the back. Also, this bourbon sauce, you can make a big batch and it'll keep in your fridge for a really long time. Drizzle it on everything. Drizzle on your lover. Might be good. TT's over here like, oh my god. All right, second pancake, hot cake. There we go. Amazing.
Ready to plate our chicken.
Ready to plate our chicken.
All right.
I'm gonna keep cooking pancakes
I'm gonna do the second.
because we're having a whole party once you guys are gone off the interwebs. Just kidding.
So chicken and waffles is kind of what this was inspired by a little bit because I am from the South. But I always do a lot of Asian inspired food, so that's what I started cooking when I first became a chef. So learning how to do Korean fried chicken and then turning my waffles into pancakes is a little easier to do at home. So you can kind of do this anywhere you are. It's always really fun to make different styles. And who doesn't like cooking with bourbon? So.
Bourbon and maple, but the last secret ingredient, butter. So we're just gonna not burn my hand on that. We're just gonna swirl in our butter to the glaze at the very, very end. Man, this looks so good. I wish I had saved a piece of the orange to like garnish the plate because everyone knows you eat with your eyes. And this is kind of one dimension, so that orange would have really set things off here. So we have our glaze, our butter melting into our glaze right here. Oh, I'm very excited to eat. Oh, we had a question about Korean fried chicken, the method or the flavors. If you wanted to make this with Korean flavors, you could get that paste, the gochujang,
Yeah, you can.
and add some of that in there, which would make it really spicy.
Which a lot of times you'll see Korean fried chicken with that paste sauce on top. So it's always drizzled on top. And that's what also gives it the heat. So even though we use a little bit of heat in the bourbon sauce and a little tiny bit of heat with the marinade, the sauce on top really does the trick.
Yeah, this is really where all, especially if you didn't have a chance to marinate your chicken, this is literally where all the flavor comes. So we're coming up to an hour. We might lose you on Instagram because Instagram only lasts an hour. But look at our delicious, oh, you guys can't see. Look at our delicious hot cakes and Korean fried chicken with our bourbon maple glaze that we're generously pouring over everything. I want to thank Chef Drake for joining me today on his little stint in New York, just very short.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you guys all so much for joining us at home. Let me know what you want to see. Ask me any questions. Please message me any time of the day. I'll get back to you when I can. Thanks for joining me on Real Life Cooking. Thank you to Drake. Thanks to TT.
Thank you guys.
See you guys later. Let us know if you have any questions. See you. Bye.